Hi, this is Kimberly Reuter, business advisor and supply chain expert, and welcome to my podcast, The Morning Mood. Super excited that you are here. Thank you. I just need to take a minute. I recorded 50 episodes a while back, and I think I thanked everyone, but I just want to thank you all again for being here and being my audience and supporting me through this. I did not expect that this podcast was going to take off like it did. I don't know why. Like people I know are like, why didn't you think that was going to happen, Kim? I don't know. Maybe because it was raw and unfiltered, and I thought maybe that wasn't gonna go very far. I don't know. But anyway, thank you because I would not be here without you. So I appreciate it. Today, this has actually been on my mind for like weeks. And when I recorded last week talking about DevOps, it really became it sort of settled in for me. And so I'm going to talk to you today about jargon. And when I say jargon, what I'm talking about are all the different terms that different companies and industries use to describe what they do and how they do it and et cetera, et cetera. And so, different industries have jargon. There's industry jargon. There's medical terms, there's trucking terms, there's carrier terms, there's ocean freight terms. Like every industry has its own jargon. And that's acceptable, and it's pretty common for every industry to have its jargon. Specialties and career specialties will have jargon. And again, that's something that's fairly common, within like even a medical jargon. If there's a specialty jargon around that. Software development jargon is what we're going to talk about today. That's where I'm leading you. I'm just going to cut to the chase. We're gonna know about software development jargon. So there's industry jargon, there's sort of specialty jargon or career specific jargon, which is what I call career specific jargon. Process jargon, maybe we could call it that. And then there's company jargon. So company jargon is when you go to a company and they call something, everybody else calls something else. Okay. So it's company jargon. When you get down into company jargon, you start to get into, as we're kind of going down these filters that I've been talking about, the bullshit quotient goes up. So just so we're clear, as this scale goes down, the scale goes up. So then you get into to company jargon or corporate jargon, corporate culture jargon, all kind of the same shit. So before I go on my tirade, I want to acknowledge that language serves a purpose. We have been creating language, written and verbal, since we've been around thousands of years. Please don't make me quote. Not my area of specialty, but language is important. It's how we communicate. Animals have language, humans have languages, orcas, killer whales, and pods have their own individual languages in their pods, which is crazy. So language is important. Language is what we use to communicate back and forth. And so if we narrow focus down on software development language specifically, a lot of the software development languages that you see out there today were created to bridge that gap. I talk about this in a previous podcast between business and technology. I talk about this in the DevOps podcast. So there has always been a bit of a river that runs between business and tech. I know there's going to be a handful of you out there that be no, like we've overcome that. I mean, in individual cases, perhaps you have, and I would say that I've been able to work really well with tech people, but it takes a certain skill set and it takes a certain kind of person that can communicate across that barrier. With the specific thing that it takes when you're trying to go from a business to tech communication jump, um, is the distillation of information. Technology people, I this is where I was going, but we're gonna go here for just a second. Technology people by design, by training, by everything, think uh in binary terms, so that's their first. But they're also very clean thinkers, and they tend to need things very crystal and compact. And so they're not always very interested in the big old story that goes with it. They just want to know what the fuck you want, and you need to be specific about it. And a lot of times, even giving them the story in the background, it frustrates them. It's a waste of time, and they'll shut down if you do that. because when they write code, they're just in a different mindset. They're just think differently. That's all. Business marketing people, have a tendency to think more creatively, et cetera, et cetera. So, there is a kind of a barrier. It's more of a mental model barrier more than a language barrier, but it's a mental model barrier, and you need to be able to bridge that. So, lots of companies and people who work in software development have created languages to help bridge that gap, okay? So, we're all gonna read the same book, we're all gonna agree to call it this, and we all agree to what that means. So basically what these companies have done, and there's a variety out there around the waterfall and agile space. I've already talked about waterfall. If you're still dealing with waterfall, get off of it. I don't care what your excuse is. So they've written books to try to help deal with this communication gap. And so that has created a variety of different languages, depending on whose book you read and what model they're using, and if it's this, that, and the other. And I'm not gonna pitch out any names there because, 1, they're not paying me, and 2, there's just too many, and quite frankly, I'm not very familiar with many of them. I have intentionally shied away from getting sucked into that drama, and I'm gonna tell you why here in a minute. But I want to acknowledge that the languages are there for a purpose. The structure is there for a purpose. I talked about it in DevOps, the DevOps structure. We need to know what the business wants. That's a business requirement. That's what it is. I don't want to hear it. That's what it is. You can call it whatever the fuck you want. It's a business requirement. But it starts with a good business requirement grouped together in some sort of feature that's gonna make an actual impact to the business or to the customer, that is cleanly and clearly communicated in the written form, that it then in a way that a tech dev can go and write code. That is basically what software, and then I did it myself, here we go. The user acceptance that goes the testing that goes on the other end, sometimes called user acceptance, user testing. It's just testing. Okay? So that's what goes on the other end. That's basically what software development is about. Languages and processes and books and charts and day planners and all kinds of marketing bullshit were created to bridge that gap and help tech and business communicate better and build better product. That is the whole point of it. When I started in this industry, now I've admittedly have stayed away from all of this stuff because I learned software development boots on ground in the trenches. Okay? I got hired on at Vastera, which was a compliance software company, had never really worked in software. Got hired in as a product manager, had no freaking idea what I was doing, but I knew about compliance and I learned really fast. And the other thing is that I learned from engineers. I didn't learn from business people. I got thrown in with a pack of engineers, wolves. But I learned from engineers at Amazon. And so I learned business requirements. What do you want? How do you need to put it together? When do you need it released by? And what are your acceptance criteria? That's it. Okay. We didn't have the books and the languages and all the shit that you guys, everybody, y'all youngins are using today. So, but let me read this to you because I want to start out with this just because business requirement. I've always called them business requirements. I was trained that it was a business requirement, but listen to all of the different terms that we have for business requirements now. Stakeholder requirement, business rule, user story, user requirements, actor requirements, functional requirements. The list goes on and on and on. And what those are business requirements. They're the requirements. Oh, they are what we need to build. It's what the code needs to do. That's all that is. But that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different terms for a business requirement. Another one, this is one of my favorites because this is when the shit gets sticky. A feature. Okay. Features are made up of a bunch of different code that creates the feature when you're working in like a company like Amazon. And so, like this, I'll just use examples of the stuff that I would build at Amazon. So, I worked at Amazon Global. I designed and my engineers built all of the code that did the duty and tax calculation at checkout. So if you're living in another country and you go to Amazon.com, I think it's actually on almost all the websites now, all the Amazon sites right now, and you want to buy something and have it shipped to your country, you're not in the United States, as an example, Amazon will do the duty and tax calculation for you at checkout and it's guaranteed. So we designed and built all that code. We have patents for it. We were the first to do it. Sorry, border free. We beat you there. Uh, and so we had, so the feature was we need to be able to do checkout with duty and tax calculation. So in this scenario, that involved a tax engine, the checkout pipeline. We needed to build some additional software and tables to house the new tax codes. Like all of this stuff was a multifaceted build. Okay. And so it was, so for this case, this feature of doing the duty and tax calculation was probably made up of 5 or 6 different teams in total that we needed to all coordinate business requirements, build some stuff, drop some code, make some changes, redirect some stuff, yada, yada, yada. That's a feature, okay? That's what I call a feature. In today's world, there are epics, initiatives, strategic themes, work streams, chapters, again, just to name a few. All of these are a feature. That's all they are, is a feature. This is my feature. So as I said, language serves a purpose. So all of this, so the language does serve a purpose. This is where I start to have a problem. It becomes a weapon. Oh yeah, I've seen it. I've done it. I've gone to war over this. Companies, individuals, teams will turn the language into a weapon. And here's what that looks like. In a meeting, blah, blah, blah. All right, we're going to go through all of our actor requirements for this upcoming novel. Here at X Company, we use actor requirements. And this is blah, 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 blah. Who gives a fuck? It doesn't matter. They weaponize the term. And the truth of the matter is it's just a fucking business requirement. That's all it is. That's all it ever was. That's all it ever will be. But we put a fancy name on it. Because when we put a fancy name on it and we start to weaponize this, we have power. Because that person who did that, and this has happened to me, with multiple people and with the same people multiple times. After about the third time of calling bullshit on it, they finally fucking stop. Let me tell you. But you got to stick with it. You got to commit to the bullshit calling. We'll get into that maybe another podcast. I think that's a good one. By the way, I did find a notebook. So when you weaponize these terms, when you create, and this is where I was talking about when you get into company corporate terms, corporate culture terms, where the bullshit goes up and the functionality of the term goes down. This is what I'm talking about. So you go into a corporate, you go into a company, and they're like, well, we use this very discrete term to describe something that isn't actually right. And almost always. So let's take this actor requirement situation. This actually fucking happened. Believe it or not. I think I never did really figure out what was going on in here. I think they tried to munge like different philosophies, like the actor user story. I don't know. There may have been a stage. There was a Broadway production. I don't fucking know. It was crazy. Actor requirement. So back to this actor requirement. The conversation then became about who was right. Is it an actor requirement or is it an actor requirement? And why is it called an actor requirement? And why do we call it an actor requirement here? And how does our actor requirement lead into our I don't even know what the frick to call it, Act 1? So we have acts here. We have Broadway productions and acts, and I don't know. None of it made sense. And so the conversations became about the term, not the work, not what actually mattered. The content, the process, the good product, the building something that your customer wants. The conversation wasn't about that. The conversation became about, was JD right? Because he calls it an actor requirement. And that's what it is. And I and you, Kim, by the way, are an absolute freaking idiot because you don't know that. But here's the truth. The people, and here's, I'm going to give you all inside tip. Listen up. I'm going to tell you a truth. People who do that, people who hang on that, people who try to hang you with that term bullshit, they don't know anything. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. Don't know shit. They read a book, they learned a new term, and what they're really trying to do is hide their ignorance by deflecting everything over here on this other bullshit thing that makes no difference. Because here's the thing, whether or not we call it a business requirement, an actor requirement, a user story, a stakeholder requirement, a functional requirement, a unicorn fart, I don't care what you call it. The function of it is the same. The function of it is to clearly communicate a requirement to your technology partners. Epic, feature, initiative, chapter, story, work stream. Same fucking thing. A bunch of stuff that we need done, grouped together in a way that it makes sense so that when we release it, it does something. That's it. Einstein said, if you can't explain something in 3 sentences or less, you don't understand it. And that is a universal truth. So anytime there is a situation where there is an argument over the correct bullshit term, there's something underneath that. Actually, there's nothing underneath that. That's the something. There's nothing. Now, I don't want people to walk away from this and be like, well, none of this matters, blah, blah, and I don't need to do it, and yada, yada, yada. Again, language matters. Communication matters. Understanding what the other person has to say or what they're trying to say matters. It matters a ton. But when you weaponize it, when you use it to alienate, when you use it to degrade, when you use it to puff yourself up and make yourself feel like you know something that ain't nobody else knowing, that is bullshit. And I'm inviting you, my itty bitties, call it out. Know your shit before you do it, but call it out. And it is perfectly acceptable to use an everyday layman's term for something. There is no value. You don't look any smarter, and you're not accomplishing anything more when you're using the silly terms. If they work for you, that's great. Make sure they work for everybody, and don't use them for weapons. That's me. Peace out. We'll talk tomorrow.